Hello, welcome to a City Voices interview with Mark Lemmon. Mark is a spiritual practitioner and he has been a regular presence of late at our Saturday spirituality group. He has a lot to say about spiritual subjects. So why don't we dive in? Mark, tell us about yourself.
Hi. And when I was 19, I got into a spirituality, I guess, training group. I took some beginning classes, uh, and I had been reading books before that about spirituality. So when the classes start, everything that they were teaching seemed relevant, seemed significant, seemed the same as my thinking. So it's not like I was hearing strange things for the first time. And I did that. I took the beginning classes and I did the training, moved on from there. And eventually I spent like 10 years in that organization. And then even beyond that organization, kind of starting my own operation. And then it just got difficult to juggle it all with kids and family, and so then I took a break. And now that kids are gone, or the kid is gone, I'm kind of looking back at that, and I'm wondering how to kind of recapture some of that sense of connection, some of that awareness, some of that practice, and I'm just figuring out how to kind of move forward.
Let's start with the basics. What is a soul?
It's a very good question. And I'm not sure if describing it as just an energetic self kind of gives it enough credit. That seems to be kind of the game that we're trapped in. There's a material self and this physical self, or this material physical self, and then there's a spiritual self. So how do you describe that energy? Is it dark matter that somehow represents consciousness? I don't really know what name to put to an energy space, and it kind of, I guess, generates a conundrum: is if we are a physical thing and a spiritual thing, then how can those two kind of occupy the same space?
Let's learn a little bit about you, Mark. What was your childhood like?
Latchkey kid, and in some sense, you could say I just kind of raised myself. When I think back in my own childhood, it's as if my parents weren't kind of there. It's kind of like the Charlie Brown thing, where there was just kind of voices in the background. I I would say that I spent a lot of time talking to spirit guides, and having kind of a dialogue, or rich conversations in my own mind was more real than maybe the interactions with the rest of the world. There were some experiences in childhood, maybe spiritual experiences. I remember one time I was playing with a car on my grandmother's couch, and all of a sudden I saw a face, and I was kind of used to seeing faces just in my own mind, used to talking to faces. When I saw this face, it startled me. I just sat there with a little car in my hand, trying to figure out what to do next. It was dark. It seemed kind of ominous at that moment, and then I heard a voice say, it's a friend, or you don't have to worry about it." And so then I just went back to playing. That voice now I kind of reference as maybe a Buddhist influence. That maybe there's a time there was a time in a past life where I was a monk, and that was kind of representative of that history. That face was, and now when I think about it, it was more let's say, like a Tibetan like face than anything else I would attribute that the characteristics of it to.
How old were you when that happened, and how long has the voice been with you?
I haven't really ever recognized that voice again. And why it came to me, I'm not sure. It may still be around in some capacity, but it occurred, I'm going to say maybe five or something that occurred. But I do have a specific memory of other spirit guides, two of them specifically, and one of them was kind of a blonde girl. At least that's the valence that I remember. But the quality of information in our interactions was always kind of poor. It was always just, oh, I can run faster than you can, or I can swing higher than you can. It was always just this competition. And at one point, I remember just kind of like, I'm tired of listening to you guys. Like I'm tired of this endless state of kind of one-upsmanship. So a lot of those kind of that internal dialogue kind of ended at a certain age.
Can you tell us about your parents?
Uh, my my mother was always searching for the knight in shining armor. So you could say, since I grew up with her, that I kind of got caught up in trying to be the savior, the kind of male savior. So I was for a while I was her little shining knight, and then at some point she finally found that guy, and then I kind of got shuffled off. So there was a period of time where I was important or relevant to her, and then there was a period of time where I was this thing that was burdensome. My parents divorced when I was two or so. So my father was not really in the picture. He lived in Northern California. We lived in Southern California, and he he was just something I went to go visit every year. There was a short period of time where I lived with him, but it didn't last very long. But it should be maybe said that he he's kind of spiritual at birth. So he remembers in his childhood lots of spirit guides and kind of fighting them in the basement. That's one story he tells. And he's pretty good at reading people or doing spiritual teaching. So you could say that I've kind of followed in his footsteps to kind of know him. As a matter of fact, we went through the same organization. He went through it prior to that, to me going through it. And then sometimes when I would visit him as a teenager, I would end up with him at the organization that we both went through. I would end up with him as a kid, kind of hiding or sneaking around the house. So where he did readings or actually attending an open talk about the organization. So I remember some conversations as a kid being in the organization that I ended up training in later on. And one particular moment, I don't know how old I was, 12 or 13 or something like that. But they were, the guy was talking about what they do at the Institute, what they do at the Institute. And my little kid brain said that these guys are in a lab with coats, white coats on, and they're training people in these labs. So I had a kind of an odd reference for what the group did. Later on, of course, I found out there's no lab, no white coats, nothing like that.
Well, that's a lot like Stranger Things. I don't know
Yes,
if
it was a
you,
little bit like Stranger Things. And the guy doing the talk, he was Asian. So, or maybe I'm blending two different television shows, but anyway.
so how did you reconnect with your biological father? And also, did you have a stepfather?
Yeah, I had a stepfather from like 9 years old on. He was in construction. I ended up doing construction. So you could say my life is just kind of a mimicry of the people that were around me or the the sentinels of your life kind of thing. Do you just do what they did, or do you ever really kind of express your own self? So here I am, a construction guy like my stepfather, doing meditation like my father, but at the same time, my mother always had fantasies about building, having the kind of the nice house, and then also she had fantasies about maybe some at some point being able to tell her story in a book. So what have I done? I built houses and I write books. So it's kind of funny that I think, in some sense, I think, have I ever done anything that's actually my own, or I've just fulfilled people's fantasies around me? I got reconnected with my father when I went to college. I went to Northern California to go to school, and he was up there, and that's when I immediately started taking classes. It might be an interesting story to tell that the classes were 6 week, once per week format. The beginning classes were, so you only go once a week, and I think I said earlier that as I was going to a class, my own psychology was saying, well, these people are saying or talking about something I already think is true, so there shouldn't be any great conflict. But within my own psyche, there was voices that were saying, one of the voices was screaming, "You're in a cult, you're in a cult, you're in a cult." And another voice was screaming, the these people are taking your mind. These people are taking your mind. And I was like, wow, this is heavy. Like, I go to the class, I feel better. It's just a meditation class. Like, what's the big deal? Why am I having this kind of psychological battle? And truth, truth be told, when the voice was saying, "You're in a cult, you're in a cult," I was 19. I had no idea what a cult even was. So I was kind of, at one point, I just said to this voice, "Hey, if you're going to warn me about something, maybe you should use language or words that I actually understand, because I don't even know what you're talking about." So you can imagine having a warning voice telling you something and you don't even really understand it. Well, I took two of these 6 week classes. Again, it's 12 classes. I took 12 classes. It's kind of like big deal. When I got home for Christmas back to Southern California, I saw my mother again for the first time. And at breakfast, she says to me, "Are you in a cult?" And I go, "Holy shit, she's the voice. It's her." So then you start to wonder if there's a little speaker inside your head and kind of anybody can talk into it.
There's an international community of voice hearers. I mean, this is not psychiatric. These are just people normalizing the fact that they hear voices and they came into community with each other. Because sometimes, like you in college had challenging voices that were disruptive, and the community helps each other to cope. They even came up with a practice and a strategy for coping with challenging voices. Do you consider yourself a voice hearer even to this day?
I I would consider myself picking up on kind of everything. So, you have the physical senses and you have the spiritual senses, and they parallel. To me, for every physical thing, there's a spiritual counterpart. So I feel people's emotions at times. I can hear something, I can see something. Sometimes you even smell something, and you're just like, okay, well, what's that about? So I think just becoming more aware, you start to tap into the capacity that the physical self has to both be physical and spiritual.
Did it ever happen in your life that these spiritual experiences, the voices, the spirit guides, the sensations, the smells, that they actually disrupted you from living a normal life?
I would say in the big picture, no. It's more like you have a spiritual capacity or awareness, and I think I kind of developed that in previous lives, and so within this life, your spiritual self just wants to be recognized. Like, hey, let's do something similar to what we did before. So it just interjects itself from time to time. There was never a point where I couldn't just say, all right, shut this off. I got to go to work. There was never kind of that point. It was always just kind of an openness to seeing or understanding the spiritual world better.
Understood, but did the spiritual world, the spiritual experiences ever get so like painful, so cause a lot of suffering that maybe you were concerned, or maybe someone who was with you was concerned about it?
I I would say that kind of physical suffering that we experience all the time is that spiritual world, the pressure of your own self, uh, a challenge that's manifested in the physical, that represents what you're working on. So you could say it's the spiritual self trying to awaken in you. Some people talk about they go to a retreat or something, they experience a lot of pain, and then all of a sudden it kind of goes away or something. I have had headaches my whole life, so you could say that physical thing forces me to, it forces me down a certain road that I ask myself constantly, then what is happiness if I'm in pain all the time? So then it forces me down a road to search for answers. So sometimes you hear about spiritual people that experience pain their whole life, and that just charted a course for them. So in that kind of questioning that you're asking, I have headaches, light sensitivity,
Well,
noise sensitivity. So any one of these things could be considered maybe limiting, but I never
I'm
really took
talking
this
more
in.
about psychic pain, emotional pain, uh, disruptions in living. You know, like I always wondered about you, Mark, how you avoided the psychiatric system, and maybe you could address that.
Uh, yeah, I guess it never disrupted anything to the degree that I felt like I couldn't handle it. But understand too, at 19, I take these classes and I start to then go into the longer program, the year-long program of clairvoyant training. All that kind of all that kind of psychology of the self that is that is scary or difficult kind of goes away because you start to experience the energy of your own self. And when you recognize yourself as a soul connected to the collective consciousness or the stream of consciousness, then whatever question you ask gets answered. So you no longer feel a sense of loss or mental struggle. You just kind of know, oh, this is the current challenge I'm experiencing. If I go ask somebody, they'll read it, they'll look at it for me, and they'll give me some clues to the puzzle. Or I can just sit down, meditate, and start to ask myself, connected to this kind of stream of consciousness, the truth of everything. Just ask myself what the answer is, and then answers start to come. And so you can be kind of self-serving or even self-directing in that way. And you could say that kind of described a lot of my life because since those 10 years in my 20s, I've just been kind of doing this stuff on my own without really any support network. So it's really been a development of trying to, get yourself into a pickle and then trying to figure out some way out of it.
Questions. Can you tell us about your teenage years? And then can you jump ahead to tell us more about like what it means to be clairvoyant?
Yeah. Uh, I would say my teenage years were just the confusing teenager, just when you're in a school system, there's so much stress being around all those people, especially if you're somewhat sensitive, and you kind of then end up turning that sensitivity off. Or, of course, I just drugs and did drugs and alcohol to kind of what soothe myself in some way or to find any sense of happiness. And it's really not until I started doing that clairvoyant training that I kind of found no sense to drugs anymore. There's a couple times once I started doing the training that I would drink, like with an old friend or something like that, and the alcohol no longer had any effect on me if I could bring my own soul present. So if I could be present, the alcohol had no impact. Now, if I went out of my body, then I experienced the effects of the alcohol. But if I came back in again, the effect would disappear. Matter of fact, there was a girl I was in the dormitories at the time that I was doing this training. But there was a girl that did some of the training with me. And so she had a good idea what it was like to kind of come into her body. Well, I came back one night after class and then found her and just was going to talk to her. And she was drunk. She was just laying in her bed and she was slurring her words. And I thought, well, I don't want to talk to the spirit who's currently possessing her. So I told her, hey, I'm going to bring you in your body, or I'm going to leave because I don't want to talk to whoever's currently in your body. And she all of a sudden she came into her body and she jumped up out of bed. She was no longer slurring her words, and she goes, shit, I'm not drunk anymore. What the hell did you do to me? And so after a couple of times like that, I go, well, there's no sense in alcohol or drugs anymore because if you're present, they have no effect on you. And also you can generate your own personal happiness with a far greater uh, value than the effects of alcohol, and then also the downside effects.
So what is clairvoyancy? What does it mean to be clairvoyant? And does everyone have this ability?
Yeah, everybody has it. Everybody uses it, matter of fact. But you just tell yourself, some other story. But also, there's no real structure in the society to develop something like that. So it just kind of goes into your subconscious when you don't use it. So clairvoyance is just seeing energy. You can see a halo around somebody. Some people think they see something and they go, "Oh wow, I saw something." But if you live in the physical world and you also live in the spiritual world, and the idea that you as a spirit were blind, that you couldn't see, that you had no eyes, that you couldn't navigate the spiritual world by having any sense of visual awareness, it seems kind of silly. So as a soul, you can see just like you can in the physical world. You can see. So how do you get yourself in a situation to develop this? You kind of you either reincarnate in a place that can support such growth, or you do something like I did and start taking classes and try and develop it. And you could say, and that's what meditation is about. You sit down, you close your eyes, you start to disconnect yourself from all the body stimulus, and then you start to act as a soul. You start to have an inner conversation where you listen to yourself. You start to see things about yourself. You might just see symbology, or you might just see conversations. Um,
Speaking of body stimulus, do you experience a lot of anxiety in your life?
Currently, I am. And I just had a kind of new awareness where I came into my body as a soul with such clarity, with such a high energy, and I was looking around, and in the spiritual world, there's spirit guides everywhere. So I suddenly kind of shifted into a spiritual world format, and there were spirit guides around me. They were doing some healing. I was suddenly everything is just kind of energetically easy, as opposed a lot of times when you're in the physical, it feels like everything's kind of difficult, or you feel like you're actually dragging like physical mass or something. Everything seems like it's effortful. So anyway, in this moment, I felt like, oh my God, everything is so easy. Everything's just flowing. I can change kind of what I want. But also in that moment, I noticed, or I had the sense to kind of look down at the lower self, look down at the body personality, and the body personality is the first chakra, survival, the second chakra, emotions, and the third chakra, expressing your will. And those pretty much sum up living in the physical self. Well, I look down at those lower chakras and the energy that's typically expressed in, and the energy that's expressed in my own self. And I heard myself say, you don't need any of this anymore. As if you don't need to uh, model yourself in the physical world to learn lessons. You can just be your own soul and know right action and generate your answers from the stream of consciousness. And so I said, wow, how interesting. Maybe I should just start to how do you then unwind yourself? Then I asked myself, how do you unwind yourself from the body personality? How do you stop developing a personal value from all the physical interactions? Well, it seems like at that point, then you just kind of, the only thing left is to go into the metaphorical cave and just kind of isolate yourself. But I'm not really prepared to do that. So after that, I've started experiencing all this anxiety that maybe summarizes the body personality that I've been holding on to my whole life, and suddenly now I'm confronting it. So I've been having kind of like these waves of feelings where I feel really content or present. Then all of a sudden I'm a little out of my space, and then these waves of anxiety. And this is kind of new to me, so I'm figuring out how to manage it.
Like figuring out how to navigate it as part of this growth process.
Yeah. How to when suddenly some fear comes up and you're like, oh my God, and then you're like, wait, it's just nothing. It's just an illusion. Okay, so then how do you get enough ownership of self? How do you decide to be present enough, or even as a soul, living your life more than you were before? Because I could easily say that when I've done this construction work, that maybe somebody else did it all, and my soul experiences were maybe the end of the day where I'd sit down and meditate for a little bit and kind of come into myself and then reflect. So you could say I've always just kind of been somebody else besides my own self. You could say it's a placeholder. It's an intellectual placeholder that gets to experience the body personality, and I, as a spirit, I'm really not that interested in hammering nails. So at the end of the day, then I would kind of come back into myself, and then I would have a spiritual moment, and then start again the next day.
So when anxiety washes over you, it's not like you're afraid of the anxiety. Like FDR said, the worst thing we have to fear is fear itself, right? So don't
Yes.
don't fear the fear.
Yeah, yeah.
What about anger? How often do you feel anger?
I would say not much anymore, but there is a joke in our family that nobody can really tolerate more than a couple of things at once. So I'm really good at doing kind of like one thing at a time and just really being with that. When there's suddenly two things to deal with, then it's like, oh shit. And then when there's three things, it's like there's a snap. You just lose it. And some of our family members have had a lot of problem with that, and others have managed it well. But there are jokes. My grandfather was Catholic, and so he would go around the house from time to time, not very often, but when stuff happened, he would yell out, why me? Why me? I go to church, because nobody in the family could handle much stimulus very well, and nobody ever works out. So it's interesting just to see this trait kind of in this Catholic family of maybe a mental deficiency in
Have you
dealing with
ever
complexity.
been have you ever been depressed or like super sad?
Uh, I experienced those things as a teenager, and then once I started doing meditation and clairvoyance, it all went away because depression is just being empty of your own soul or empty of your own energy. So it's literally it's the symbolism of just being depressed, just being empty. So that all went away, but there was that period of time where I just worked for 20 years and then tried to kind of manage some connection with myself along with all these busy work days. And so at the at an end to that kind of cycle, then I experienced some kind of deep depression, and it was, you could say, it's just the grief from choosing to live a life where you don't you're not expressing your true self.
Tell us about your wife and daughter. I mean, how are those relationships going?
They have always gone well, up until maybe recently, when I've just connected more with my own self. Uh, but it's not like they're specifically poor. I felt not recognized as a teenager, not really supported. So I spent a lot of time supporting my own daughter. And matter of fact, we moved to Florida for a while so that so she and I mean, ultimately she, but I played with her just on the beach. But she and I played beach volleyball. So there was a period of time there, 2 or 3 years, where she and I got to really connect and play and developed this sports relationship, this competitive kind of creating using the energy of the physical energy to create your own life, and that's kind of one of the, I guess, neat things that I, as a parent, kind of got to share with her is that you don't always know what you're going to teach your kids, or if you even have anything to teach, or maybe you're just a placeholder, and maybe you're just making it safe so that they can grow. But at one point, I had a conversation with her about creating, and I was explaining that many people don't create their lives; they just kind of follow along within the structure that they exist in. And so I gave her some insights about creating, about using her energy to create. And then she came back to me sometime afterwards and said, "Hey, I I imagined something. I put my energy towards intending it to happen, and I created it." She goes, "I know that I made this happen." So it became kind of a neat story for her and I to share this kind of history of every time she did something, found a partner, got herself into a tournament, used volleyball to travel around the world. She would say, "Hey, I imagined this and I created it. You taught me how to create." So that's kind of, I guess if you're going to teach your kid anything, it would be kind of that. And I think about what other things you could teach them, and I haven't specifically come up with some other things, but maybe energy manners, where you just don't invade somebody else's space. Maybe that's we talk about having physical manners, how your body's supposed to behave, but we don't really talk about how to have energetic manners, or how to make sure you as a soul aren't inclined to invade someone else's space.
It's interesting that you mentioned that you guys partnered up in beach volleyball because I had quite a famous YouTuber came to my house to interview me. His name was Chris Ulmer, and he said beach volleyball is like a life changer for him. And he was in Florida too, playing beach. He still plays beach volleyball, and it keeps him going. It's like it's this. It's not just a beautiful sport, but it's such a bonding experience with your partners and with the other team, and the whole coordination of the thing. It's a very spiritual experience. So it's funny that you that it's wonderful that you bonded with your daughter over that.
There,
Um,
there is kind of a, we talk about this duality, male, female, body, soul, yin, yang, all that kind of stuff. And so then when there's just two of you trying to achieve a goal, on one side of the court, there is kind of a symbolism for life in it.
and I mean, do you want to talk about your wife as well?
Yeah, yeah. She's what she I guess if I'm the spiritual, she's the physical. uh I don't know. I mean, I could tell a story about meeting her. We met in Tecate, Mexico, at a biomedical health retreat. At that point in time, I was kind of tired of those voices or impulses in your brain that say, "Hey, there's a girl. Oh my God, what about her? Think about her." And I just go, God, what is this? I'm sitting here, I'm happy as can be, and all of a sudden, my whole mind space, or my thought system is directed towards some girl that just walked in, and I hate this kind of invasion of my own sense of self. So I saw her across the room, and she was walking with some guy, and I thought, oh, good, she's with some guy. I don't have to think anymore. And there was no interaction that night. Well, that night in my hotel room in Tecate, I got kicked out of the retreat center because there wasn't enough space. So I was in a kind of a motor hotel in Tecate, and this guy is in the room with me, and everything's kind of greasy and dirty and not really refined in any way. And I'm in my bed. He's over there in his bed. I don't know who this guy is. I'm like, here I am in Tecate in some room with some guy I don't even know. And I became overwhelmed with this love in my heart, this feeling of complete bliss. And I had never experienced something like that before, and it was certainly otherworldly for me. And I went, holy crud! And I woke up from a dream, dreaming about her. And I went, my first impulse was like, kind of connecting with her. But then my next impulse was just to kind of have this feeling on my own, in case, what if she never manifests, that kind of thing. So I might as well just have this kind of this blissful connection of love with my own self. So here I am, in this room having this incredible blissful connection all to myself in my own bed. And I'm thinking to myself at some point, I'm thinking, does this guy in the bed next to me have any idea what's going on with me? This is so odd. So my first encounter connecting with my wife was actually having a blissful connection in a room with some other guy. The next day, she had kind of maybe given up on relationships or something. She was older than me. I was what, 27, 28 or something. She was 30 something, 7 years older. So we didn't really talk. It's one of her friends that came with her that kept kind of pushing us together. And then after that, we went to a Buddhist retreat center. It was just for the day, but we stopped there. And then we made a plan to have a date there afterwards. I was actually going to San Francisco to walk on fire, hot coals, and she was in LA on my way back. And so we just kind of started dating from there. She doesn't really have a whole lot of spiritual awakening stories or a real deep sense of soul, but she has a good.
Can you fast forward to today? How's your relationship today? After that, amazing spiritual experience that kicked it off.
Yes. No, it's good. She's more physical and I'm more inclined for the spiritual. So I don't know if that's just meant to balance me out, or if at some point some of what I talk about will make more sense. She certainly understands it all intellectually, but does it materialize as a state of being? That's another question.
Yeah, I bet she's also a very good communicator because people who are intellectual tend to be very good communicators. My girlfriend is also of 20 plus years together. She's very material, much more than I am. I'm more spiritual. She calls what I do like woo woo, and she's an atheist and everything. But I do in talking to her. There are moments where oh my God, she is so spiritual. It's so surprising. It's people are complicated, right?
Yeah,
All right.
why doesn't it carry over? It's kind of a grand question, but I can read. I give my wife readings now and again, but she doesn't have a great interest in it. It's not like she's just happy kind of being herself. It's not like she wants to. It's not like she's looking for a spiritual destination. I guess it's kind of more in me of this spiritual place I'm trying to get to.
Yeah, you're definitely driven in that direction. She's perhaps driven in another direction. Um, you have a book that you wrote. Can you tell us the title and the meaning behind the title?
It is called the inevitable blending of the green and golden lights, and it had a different title when I first started. So this title kind of metamorphosed as I wrote, and I had a basic idea that I was presenting, and it kind of evolved as I went. So then it made greater sense. But the green and golden lights are maybe an energy expression for two of the characters, and each of them have their own kind of spiritual awakening at a certain age, and then since their awakening is different, they come to terms with 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 that in a different way, and eventually they kind of meet up as if they're like they were always supposed to support each other.
Just curious, is this somehow based on your relationship with your wife?
It I don't yeah, I don't think it was really meant to. I'm trying to think if there's any. I don't think I've framed it in that context, but I mean, primarily the book is is I was having thoughts that seemed beyond beyond a framework that maybe I was going to be able to express them in, and so I wanted to understand them better, and I put them in a story to to for my own self to make sense of, but then also to start to kind of present them to the world. I did notice that television or YouTube or whatever, they talk about certain subjects, but then a lot of stuff's kind of left off. And so I almost feel like we're in an information loop, just repeating the same stories over and over again. So I wanted to write something that talked about things that we're not normally talking about. So kind of challenge the collective expression of self.
Can you tell us, like, this should be interesting for folks. Can you explain to us how we can heal ourselves or heal other people through touch?
Uh, I guess I guess it would be intention, but certainly in the right setting. I did a hands-on healing program, so in the right setting, you just applying your hands to someone with a high energy on your hands, touching them in a location, it that person reacts to that high energy, and then they want or they start to allow their body in that location to match that high energy. So some people they go and take a spiritual class, and they go, hey, the energy in here is pretty high, and maybe they go, this is cool, or they go, this is too scary. So when you set an intention for a high energy, and then you bring people into that space, then they start to match, they start to express that high energy, and then the healing starts to occur. And healing is just change. It's just a change from one state to another. So massage is a healing, because that person giving you a massage is setting an intention. But the beginning classes that I took, there is a there is a meditation class and a healing class, and you can learn right away just how to do healings. You do them with some support of a spirit guide, but right away, someone can sit down in front of you, and you can start to wave your hands around their aura, and you can manifest change. So it's kind of funny, for me as a 19-year-old, to feel like I have no control in the world, and suddenly someone's sitting there, and I'm helping them change themselves. And I go, wow, how fascinating! Now suddenly I feel like I have some sense of power, or some sense of ability to move my own self forward.
Now, emotional and psychic trauma has been scientifically linked to disease and illness and discomfort and pain. You experienced the trauma of your mother, like withdrawing her love from you and putting it on and giving it to someone else. That's a major trauma. Like, how do we heal from trauma?
It's a really hard question, because sometimes I look at therapy and I think, I'm not sure that works. And I was told a long time ago that to create change, the soul has to be present. Well, if you have no sense of your soul, if you're just living in the body personality, if the material world is kind of all there is, then can you really create change if it's necessary that the soul is present? So I kind of see that there's these phases that we go through. There's the phase where you are just a physical self and you believe in just the physical world, and maybe you just run a program your whole life. Your own self is just kind of downloaded with information as a child, and then you just run that program the rest of your life, and your own self, your own spirit is never interjected. And so if you were trying to heal something within yourself, you couldn't, because you're just running a program. You can update the program, you can add some mechanisms to try to make the program more manageable, but can you ever really change it? So then this question of, that really, to change our own mindscape or our own psychology, we actually need to then start to become spiritual. And then there's this other kind of life of where maybe something similar to mine, where at some point you become more aware of yourself as I was a spiritual person, and you kind of live in this duality where you're having a physical life and a spiritual life, and then maybe there's another life after that where you're more spiritual, and you start to just kind of live in the oneness, and you don't experience yourself as duality anymore.
That would be sweet. What is a psychic surgeon? Tell us about your work with those psychic surgeons in the Philippines.
Uh, I did a couple of trips, but I was always feeling like I wanted to break through some limit of skepticism. I wasn't really looking for enlightenment. Uh, and the organization I went through never really even talked about enlightenment. If anything, it was just like being a better reader, or knowing yourself better, or just kind of being happier. So I thought, maybe I'll go to the Philippines and figure out from one of these psychic surgeons how to do psychic surgery, or maybe I'll go to India and see if I can see someone levitating. So I wanted to like have a moment that proved a spiritual self so significantly that I could let go of kind of the skepticism that exists within me. And now that I kind of have more reflection, I kind of know that this body that I'm currently inhabiting, this white body, is just is extremely skeptical. That information is downloaded into it. So in a sense, I spent my whole life just trying to prove that I exist amongst all this kind of material thinking. But so the impetus for going to the Philippines was to kind of see if I could experience that energy in my hands, or essentially move my hand through a physical thing. And I met a number of different psychic surgeons. I tried a little class. Some of them told me I had to come back at Easter to go up into the caves when they all celebrate uh, this possibility of expression. But I did have a moment in a Spiritista church. This one lady, she took me to a church one night, and there's probably about 10 people in there, and everybody had to go up and give a little sermon. So I went up and talked, and I was just intentional about teaching kind of what I know, and I kept trying to bring the energy higher and higher up into the room. And at the end, everybody gets into a big circle and they invoke this energy, and all of a sudden my hands buzzed. They went to a really high energy, such that they no longer felt like a material thing anymore. It felt like my hands could move through any physical object, as if the physical state was completely an illusion. But at the same time that I started experiencing this kind of elevated high within my hands, my own third chakra or will center, there was this extreme pressure on my chest. The woman and another man, they both reached to my chest and tried to give me some assistance with it, because I felt like I was being pulled apart. This high energy pulling me one way, and this uh, this incredible consensus of skepticism kind of pulling me down another way. And you can imagine that with your own psychology kind of being ripped apart between these two ideas, that spirit doesn't exist, atheism is real, only the material world exists, and this other side of the material world doesn't even exist. That everything is just, this is just an extension of the spiritual self. And sometimes I still kind of feel that similar buzz, but never at that capacity that I noticed then. So I never got the chance to stick my hands in somebody and pull something out, but I sat with numerous healers while they did this, and there was no long sleeves. You know, there's no cameras, there's no trick or anything. The guy was sitting next to me, and then someone comes in for a healing. He gets up, he reaches into them, he pulls out something like a plastic bag, or he pulls out something that looks like a tumor, and then the people just give him a little money and they go away.
Man, you saw a psychic surgeon have their hands turn ethereal, go inside a body and pull out a tumor, a bloody tumor. Is that what you saw?
Yeah, yeah. Matter of fact, the guy pulled one out of me one day on the side of my head, and as he was pulling it out, I suddenly was overwhelmed with anger, and I thought felt like I was gonna reach for his hand and just, tear the guy apart or something like that. And I went, wow, that was charged. Whatever he just took out of my head, that was so charged. Uh, and then I felt, the blood kind of running down my face. And then he showed me in a little dish what he pulled out of me: white tissue, red tissue. I mean, I guess somebody could study it if they want. I don't know. I'm not so interested in proving those kind of things, especially when you see them pull plastic bags out of people. So then you think all they're doing is really just opening a space to pull out a negative energy and then just manifest it as something. The thing that physically manifests is just some way to convince you, that you've let go of something.
But did that mass of tissue was that actually inside your skull?
Yeah, yeah, that's the grand question, isn't it?
Okay. In Kyoto, Japan, you went to a monastery and explored the lands around it. Tell us more.
Uh, I was just on a vacation with my wife and daughter. I wasn't really looking for anything. I I did. I was at a number of different locations previous to that. Like the palaces and stuff like that. And I would, to entertain myself, I would kind of look around, try and sense the energy. Did anything happen in this place? Is there any history left? Was there any was our is our own history even meaningful? That kind of thing. If it doesn't if it doesn't last energetically. So I never felt anything anywhere. But when I went to this place in Kyoto, and I can now kind of say it's an old monastery. When I first got there, I had no idea what it was. In Japan, there's not a whole lot of signs in English for English tourists, though in Korea there was. So as soon as I walked onto the sidewalk or the perimeter, I just kind of, my eyes kind of got big and I went, something happened here. What the hell is it? I go, and I'm looking at my wife. I go, what's different here? And she goes, I don't know, but I feel it. So I just start going on a kind of a mission like, okay, what is it? What is it? Why is the energy of this place so much different than any place I've ever been? So there's some buildings sparsely apart. They're historical. They're incredibly detailed. They're caged up, and you can just look inside. And I go kind of from one to the other. And at that point, I'm just trying to figure out: is this actually a monastery? Trying to get some sense that if this is a monastery, that maybe something, that a spiritual group has an impact here. They're changing the energy. A current spiritual group, or something happened in time. My first inclination was something happened in time. I went from building to building, just trying to look for clues. Then I walked up into a canyon that kind of went quickly up into the mountains, and there was a cave up there with a stream. And so then I started to put together a larger picture of, more than likely monks were here. More than likely something happened. And I walked beyond the cave, and at a certain point, the energy just ended. And so I went, okay, well, there's no reason to keep walking. So then I turned back in. So it seemed like there was a perimeter to this energy, extended a certain distance around this monastery. And I went back to some of the earlier buildings I had visited earlier, and I started building an idea in my mind, kind of seeing a picture in my mind, because I asked myself, okay, if something happened in time, what was it? And can I read it? Can I sense it? Can I see it? And so what came to me is that someone achieved enlightenment, and then another individual that was a student came close to it. And then I asked myself, well, what is this enlightenment that this person created or this person achieved? What was it? What did it look like? And the message I got that he combined the parts of himself that exist in all the heavens. He aligned all of those, got them all in synchronicity in some way. And he combined those to all the parts of himself that exist within the physical. And within that synchronicity, he then was able to dissolve his own physical self and turn it into a spiritual self. And all the parts of himself, that physical self, turned to light. And then they imbued the land and air around that property. I kept wondering if there was a location somewhere on site where the person did this. And so I kept looking for it, like as if I could touch into like a point of impact, but I couldn't find that. And later on, I kept kind of asking myself, where did this occur? Well, the whole rest of that day, I was just like on a cloud. I was just kind of charged, but I was also feeling like new parts of myself. You can imagine when you match or you kind of tap into what someone had done on the degree of enlightenment, that you would start to express it within your own self, that possibility. We call this matching. You get into a room and suddenly you feel special to the room, where you just match the energy of it. So when I was clairvoyantly reading this, to understand it, I had to kind of become it. Well, after I became it, the next day, I was I basically couldn't get out of bed. I was sweating, a lot of heat. I was noticing pain in the top of my head, and all that sweating, all that heat, and that's all just kundalini. That's all just your healing energy turning on. I was suddenly aware of some really extreme pain at the top of my head around my crown chakra. And I just laid there the whole day trying to adjust to it. I didn't eat, I didn't drink, just trying to come to terms with, can I manage this pain enough so that I can go, back to my vacation. So after a day, I just kind of said, okay, that's enough. I'm going, maybe I don't have to do this anymore, but it still kind of lasts with me. And if I tell anybody about the story, then all that charge kind of comes back. I feel like somehow maybe I've adjusted to some of that pain in my crown chakra, but there's still some of it there. Maybe I'm doling it out slowly so I can kind of manage it as I go.
Did you confirm with the monks or anyone that someone indeed achieved enlightenment there?
Yeah, I didn't look for any confirmation. And if seeing that was just purposeful for me growing, then there's no real reason for me to try and verify it as an actual event. Uh,
All right. So, Mark Lemmon, you are the universe having a Mark Lemmon experience in your body. The universe, and so what is the universe's mission for Mark Lemmon on planet Earth?
but I have asked myself this kind of question. You could say that if this is a meaning of life question, that maybe a simple answer is combining soul and body into one to experience oneness. I guess you could expand that also and just say that we as a consciousness thing at one point created form to know what form is about and maybe to kind of master it. And then our exit from this is to go maybe back to formless or to go to another four-dimensional plane or something like that. So you could say this is kind of like a video game that we're just learning how to play the game within the rules. I mean, for myself, it's just the answer at this point is just combining soul and body, and maybe then living less or defining my own knowingness or my own value of self, defining that less by living in the body personality, less by struggles of survival, by experiencing my emotions and everybody else's emotions, and less by trying to figure out how to express a body awareness of will.
What are your closing thoughts as we wrap up, Mark? What would you like to convey to our 50 to 100 viewers?
just just that the I guess I had this very easily in my mind a second ago, but maybe it's starting to wash away. But that just awareness of your own soul. That's kind of the meaningful the meaningful path. I ask myself these kind of questions, like if you had a, if you're going to do interviews or something like that, if you had a message, what would it be? Or if you had some monologue that you had to give, like how would you structure it? But I so much like the kind of give and take of conversation so much better, as if you and that other person talking are kind of going on a journey together.